again, here we are, another reason to talk about heat networks. This is episode God knows what, there must be 7 or 8 out there now at least. But today, quite a special day today, because for the first time, it's not me on my own from an Ener Vate point of view. I have the lovely Amy Fry with me today. And some of you out there might know that name or recognise Amy, so she might need no introduction, but she's going to get one anyway. So Amy's joined us recently from Triple Point, and Triple Point were the managing agent of the Green Heat Network Fund that has given millions and millions of pounds out to capital contributions to heat networks. So really pleased to have her in Ener Vate, and she brings that sort of unique perspective really on how funds could and should be employed, and also I'm hoping to discuss with her today how they have helped people and how they have helped to create projects, but also is there anything else that needs to be done or should be done. So that's the kind of conversation we're going to have today with Amy. So over to you, Amy. Do you want to say hello? And
yeah, thank you for having me. Oh God, where do I begin? So I joined the heat network industry, which was with Triple Point, funny enough, back in 2019, and obviously worked on the Heat Networks investment project.
Yeah.
Which essentially rolled into the Green Heat Network Fund, and my role there was relationship manager. So I think there's a big similarity between the two roles that I play, actually.
Yeah.
Triple Point was very much focused on supporting the project, so I guess you could say customer facing in one sense, because the projects were our customers on the fund. Front end support, so local authorities, private sector developers saying we need some cash to make this project viable. It's government funding, it's free, who would want some free funding? And we would essentially, or I would essentially be supporting them with eligibility criteria, making sure they know how to apply. Which then I think, well, it did lead me to Ener Vate. So I remember first talking with Tom Chapman and Joe Longdon on the Mersey Heat scheme. Which has grown arms and legs. So I think that was probably the first real project that I'd sort of understood all the complexities of a heat network, and again, it's sort of private sector led. And I guess we've had a long-standing relationship just because Ener Vate support on so many of the schemes, that when the job for Connections Manager came up, it took my fancy.
Well, we're very pleased to have Amy, because Ener Vate, this is not an Ener Vate video, but Ener Vate help a lot of customers in a lot of different ways, from funding to commercial modelling to support, and across all areas really. But the very unique perspective that you've got, Amy, is that you're now on this side of the fence, as it were, and knowing what you know about how that fund has been created in the past, and also how it's been used and how it's helped. First of all, can you tell us from your perspective how it does help? Why does it help? What is the reason for that fund to exist in the first place, and how has it helped create projects?
Well, bluntly, it's scheme viability. We were taking projects that essentially had a gap in their finances, and we were able to plug that gap to make sure that if it's a local authority, they can get it across for board approvals. The same as a private sector developer. It's saying, actually, whilst they've got their own investor, actually maybe that investor isn't willing to invest all of the funding required, will we bridge the gap to get that over the line essentially?
They're expensive things, aren't they, to put in the ground? Heat networks down a main road in any city and town in the UK, they're expensive things. So that bridge, that initial gap, and the government funding, I'm right in thinking most of it's grant, it's not.
So there will be projects out there that were supported under HNIP, which was grant and loan funding. So you will have some that will have a mixture of both, but then Green Heat Network Fund was grant only.
And I suppose it's the old adage, get it in the ground. Get the heat networks built, get them in the ground, get the funding to support that initial huge investment that heat networks require. And then, so how has it helped really, Amy? How has it helped to actually create this reality of heat networks?
So I think there's obviously a long development life cycle from, let's say, Triple Point awarding funding to a local authority or private developer to them actually breaking ground. So the fund itself would provide funding for commercialisation and construction, or if in the very unlikely stage you've done a lot of that commercialisation, which is sort of pre-construction, getting all your legal contracts in place, things like that, you could receive construction funding only. But I think fundamentally a lot of the projects out there, I will know a certain number, but not all of those have been publicly announced. You will see that they are receiving commercialisation funding as well. So that is really tapping into probably the main exercise of pulling together customers, which without those customers, you've got the funding element, it's financially viable, but actually it's only good in one sense, that actually if you have your anchor load customers joined, if they say no, it doesn't matter how much money you're pumping into that scheme. Exactly. It's just not going to.
And I think it all comes back to this whole discussion that I'm having in the industry as well. It's okay getting the things funded and in the ground and viable on paper, as it were. It all depends on customers done it. And one of the things that remains to be done in the industry, in my view, and get your thoughts on this, is what also needs to be done. So we've got the funding to put the network in the ground. What else? Because I keep coming back to the point that if there's no customers connected to it, or even wanting to connect to it, or even know it exists in the first place, that's the next big problem. That's the next big area, I should say, that needs development.
Yeah, and I think there's kind of two main trail of thoughts, or two things that intertwine. So again, with all of these videos, it's education and collaboration, and we talk about a lot of education and collaboration within our market. That's all well and good. Mr. Private Developer, I know how funding works to get your scheme off the ground. But then actually, where I am now on the other side of the fence, it's then educating those customers to say, private developer or whoever has this funding, there's a financially viable scheme there, but actually you need to understand what you're tapping into, and you need to understand the reasons of why it's going to help your building or the landowner or whoever it is that we're asking to join up to that network.
Understanding, you use the word there, understanding and familiarity. Regular viewers, if there are any, will hear that word a lot on all these videos and previous videos we've done, and also I'm going to say it many times in the future. But if somebody was to try and connect me to a heat network and I didn't know what a heat network was or what the benefits were, that's a mountain that I need to overcome. So do you think there's any support required centrally, either from Triple Point, anywhere else? I come back to 12 months ago, there was a TV ad for heat pumps. The furry little animal people, and we're all going to be on a heat pump, and isn't this warm and cosy? And that's good, because a lot of people will be on heat pumps in the future. And the government has understood that and realised that. And therefore, there was a campaign to familiarise people to that concept. Is there any need, in my view there is, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but for some central funding to widen the message? We're having funding to things in the ground in the first place to make things viable for investors, but where's the funding to create a market for it?
And I wonder if or is it actually a funding mechanism? I think it's a mechanism that is going to bring about that education. So whether it's bringing new skills into the market, whether it is developing resources to essentially educate. I don't know whether that comes under funding or whether it's a different kind of mechanism, but it's definitely something to broaden the gap, because they run in parallel, don't they? It's kind of, you can't have one without the other. So it does need to be something, but it's how do we package that up and make sure that it's also relevant for the right parties, because you could have, let's say we were talking about architects earlier. Yes, they need to be very technically minded to understand, I'm going to design this building, I need to make sure technically it is compatible with connection to a heat network. That's fine.
So they need to understand what a heat network is.
And you're going to have those developers that, yes, they've got a technical team, but they're going to have a team that don't really want, or not that they don't want to, but their role isn't the technical side of it. It's I need to make as much profit as possible, or I need to align with these sustainability targets. So it's making sure that whether it's through funding, if that message is going out, it's actually tailored to the
It's a good point
individual
you make there about I need to either make profit or I need to achieve certain levels of carbon or whatever it may be for any individual connector or customer to a heat network. And I went to a very useful presentation last week up in Scotland where we talked about the need for heat networks to be in the ground and operational almost before the subject of carbon reduction is required. Now, I'm not advocating that we go back to gas-fired heat networks or coal-fired heat networks that I've seen when I first started in the industry. But equally, if there was some kind of leeway for a customer, say, if you connect to a heat network, tick, you have done you've carried out your obligation to be carbon friendly, let's call it. And then the obligation is set on the heat network to decarbonise, but over a longer period of time. I wonder if that's another arm that could work in certain places.
And I think the thing that I take
transitional approach.
Yeah, I think what I take from you suggesting that is actually the behavioural aspect that comes in line with that. So I think a lot of customers, it's an easier sell when it's there. We are all customers of some kind of product, and when you can see something, you can believe in it.
And I've ticked the box to connect to it.
So you know it's there, you know you can connect, you've ticked all the boxes to say, this is technically viable, and then actually it's not your responsibility. But I think that kind of seeing is believing is actually most of the struggle of getting someone to sign up, because it's a fear of the unknown. It
really is. It's to me it's a halfway house. I'm not saying this is the perfect solution in every case, of course not. But if there was some temptation for people to, rather than spend a fortune on designers and wondering how they're going to decarbonise their building, if they just ticked a box to say, I've connected to a heat network, and then the heat network takes the obligation to decarbonise over a period of time, then that not only keeps prices controllable in the short term, but then gives us that wall, that gives us that bridge rather over the wall that we all need to get to. So I'm not saying that's the answer here, but it should be part of our armoury as an industry.
I think there is a big argument of saying actually we know the technicalities, we know how to design a heat network, they're not new. That practical implication and getting them built is something that is very well understood. But the biggest argument is, and the biggest challenge is, getting customers to sign up.
Can you imagine investors? Because investors always say, well, where's your customers? Where are your customers? Where are your customers? If investors knew there was 1,000 customers wanting a heat network because it ticked their box, there wouldn't be any problem with investment. There wouldn't be any problem with viability of projects. So it's just a shift in focus of how we now support this brilliant product that we have, that we've talked about in previous videos, and how it can utilise waste heat and all that sort of thing. If we get them in the ground as quickly as possible with the Triple Point Green Heat Network Fund pot that we have, but then make it easy for people to connect, we can deal with the other issues further down the line. And it's just, as I say, that ramp over the wall that we need to get to. But if we can solve all problems at once, great. But if we can't, let's ramp, because otherwise we very much might be facing a longer term problem. I really like when you said about education and familiarity. Where do you think the education should be? Is it customer focusing education, or is it also industry focus on skills within and how can we promote our industry skills wise?
I think it's a bit of both. I think, well, they're sort of two sides of the same coin, aren't they? I think customer education is really key for making sure that they are agreeable to signing up to those networks. If they don't know what they're signing up to, that is the challenge. So making sure that they have an understanding, but then actually it's the skills that are bringing new entrants into the market. There's going to be a massive, I used to know the numbers off the top of my head, but now I don't. It's getting to 2050 targets and knowing that it's up to 20% that needs to be delivered by heat networks. That needs a huge supply chain to actually physically deliver these projects. And
it really does.
Again, just from experience of the Green Heat Network Fund, you see who the main players are, you see who the main debomb contractors are in the market, And yes, there's a space for everyone, but ultimately they're not going to have all of the resources to deliver
Nor should they.
everything that we need.
It needs to be competitive.
So I think you've got customer education and just making sure that from a general, I guess, sort of population view, this is where heating is going, and making sure that people are aware. But actually we need anything from college courses, university courses, and I'm out of that game now, so I don't know what some of those courses are, and also just the practical courses, because it's understanding who's going to fix these if and when they break, and who's going to make sure that they can continue to design, and just making sure you have that educational channel through. It's
a really good point. I was speaking to Simon from SAV. Hello, Simon, if you're watching. Last week, and we talked about the transition of jobs from equivalent industries, so sort of gas network industries. The gas networks, yes, there's going to be, in our lifetimes, there's going to, especially my lifetime, there's going to be a need for gas network engineers and so on. That's absolutely clear. But there's also a transferable skill there in installing and maintaining gas network to heat networks. So those sort of companies have been extolling the virtues of heat networks because it's a safe landing place for them. And there's thousands of them already doing it. So
we were talking about electric cars earlier. It's no different to that. You're going to have mechanics that know how to fix a normal petrol diesel car. Well, you now need a mechanic that's going to understand, right, this battery in this car has gone dead. How am I going to do this? Or you're going to need the person that knows how to fix the charging point, not just the petrol station fill-up point. So it's making sure you have those people with the understanding of the infrastructure that supports the whole network.
No, it's a really good point there. So, thanks, Amy. I mean, it's been a brilliant 10 minutes or so. I can't remember how long we've been talking here. It flies by. But I think we've got an industry, haven't we, that's ready to go. I keep saying this. I've been in the industry now nearly 20 years, and it's never been riper than right now, for all the reasons we've said. What would really help, from my point of view, is that understanding of the need to familiarise customers. And how do we do that as an industry? Is that each individual company doing that, or is that some central fund? No answers here today, but this is a discussion point for future. So, thanks for the time that you spent today, and hopefully that's been interesting, and plenty of comments if you want to comment below, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.